Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the November 22nd meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I just want to make a quick logistics note before we call the meeting to order to let you all know that our public forum tonight will be on the organizational meeting, which will immediately follow the regular meeting, because any business that is brought to the public forum will be business for the new board. So that will happen after the new board has been seated is when we will have our public forum. So just so that everyone is aware, we'll go through our initial meeting, then our organizational meeting, and we will have the public forum at that time. Okay, so I will call the meeting to order and entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
Second. Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Benkin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Director Colton, will you please read our purpose statement? I'm very sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's all good. I was just telling Director Benkin, in Spanish we have a saying, último día nadie se enoja, last day nobody gets mad. So here we go. Let's do this. The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you very much. All right, and we will move on to our discussion items. And our first discussion item is our board committee update. We'll have a real quick update from the policy committee.
The minutes are there, but those policies are a discussion item for the next meeting.
Thank you. And facilities committee?
The minutes are there and the items are on the next meeting.
Perfect. Any other board committee updates? All right, we will move on to our, I'm sorry. Are there any public comments on our board committee updates? Okay, seeing none, we will move to our consent items, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval of the consent items as presented.
Second. Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Colton. And Superintendent Vincent gives to the district. Oh, it's on the next meeting? I'm sorry. Okay, you're right. I see that now. We only have our minutes.
We do this once every 2 years, so we get confused.
So the only thing on the consent items is the minutes. And it was moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Colton. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. And moving on to our action items, we'll start with the policies for action. And I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the policies as presented.
Second. Moved by Colton, seconded by Benkin. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. So that was very quick. We will move on to our board and staff items. And we will start with our recognition of our outgoing board members. And we would just like to thank the both of you so much for your service over the past years. You have been awesome board members and wonderful to work with, wonderful mentors, and great representatives of our community. We appreciate your service. Thank you.
So I want to say thank you so much for the plaque. I've been waiting for this. I have a spot on my wall for this plaque. I feel like I've earned this plaque. You know, I want to start by just spending these last few moments in gratitude. I want to thank my husband, Brian, who has been an incredible support and encouragement for me throughout this entire process. Thank you so much. I want to thank my children who have donated time with their mother to this community, you know, through dinners and weekends that have been interrupted and all of that. I want to thank my family for supporting me. I want to thank the team of people who worked on my election campaign. We were a small but mighty team. I want to thank those people for believing in me and my vision and for putting in the work to help make it a reality. I want to thank the board for learning with me, and for helping me see different perspectives. And we know we've worked through a lot of things over the past 4 years, so thank you. And I want to thank the staff. I have come to really care about and respect the staff. You have an incredibly complicated job that I don't know if anyone can ever understand unless they're sitting in those seats. And so I want to thank you all for the work that you do for our children. And then finally, I want to thank the community for allowing me to have this very important role. People are asking me, am I going to miss this? And I know I'm not going to miss this. I'm not really going anywhere. I just won't be sitting in this seat. But I will miss voting in unison. I'm going to miss that. So, but other than that, I just want to say thank you to the community, and I wish the board and the district the best moving forward.
I want to thank my beautiful family, my friends, my fellow board members, the administrators, the teachers and staff, and the Ames community. It's been an honor to represent you in this capacity. My deepest gratitude to all of you. To our students, Black, Latinas, multi-race, white, Asian, First Nations, multi-language learners, LGBTQIA2S+, dyslexic, neurodivergent, special ed, students with disability, low-income students, the outspoken ones, the quiet ones, the artists, and the athletes. And however they intersect with any of these identities and or others, I want them to know that I see them. I see them as the individual humans that they are. And I honor their dignity, and I see the beauty they bring to our community and society as a whole. I want you to know that whatever your present circumstances are, you get to envision a bright future for yourself. Stand strong, knowing who you are and knowing that you belong. You're valued, seen, and profoundly loved. Stay strong, stay awesome. You got this. I will continue to work to support our student learners, whether I'm a board member or not, because grade level reading work is social justice work, because trans affirming and queer affirming work is life-saving work, because working on equality of outcome is equity work, because these are all of our kids, because we all have to work together to propel them forward by honoring their past, their present, and their future. Gracias y buenas noches.
Any other items from the board?
I'd just like to thank Jeanette and Monique both for your service to the board and all the time you've been on it. I remember when I first met both of you, which seems like forever ago, and actually I guess was. When I got onto the board, I kind of thought one thing about what the board would be like, and I end up now entirely different things, entirely different thoughts. And I think much of that is due to discussions and learning I had with the two of you and with the rest of the board along the way. So I just thank you for everything you've done to contribute both to the community, but also to the growth of the rest of us as board members and the team that we were able to be a part of. So thank you very much.
Thank you to both of you. It does seem like a lifetime ago that you got elected, right? But I just want to thank both of you for your service, your leadership, and for speaking your truth. So, thank you.
All right.
Jeanette's comments were really emotional to me. Jeanette's a really good friend of mine, and I've been honored to serve with her on this board, and I've learned so much from her. And the community has been very, very fortunate to have her vision. All of us have learned from it. I didn't know Monique before coming, and I too have learned a lot from Monique. That's what all of us are, is we're all learners always. And we need to be in the position of always learning because it's the only way we move forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And we don't have any requests for staff. Any items from the superintendent?
I'd just like to add my congratulations to both Monique and Jeanette as well. Community schools can't exist unless community members are willing to serve. And no one knows better than you and your families the amount of time and dedication it takes. You don't do this just on a whim, because it is pretty much 24/7 most weeks of the year. And bringing multiple points of view makes us stronger as a system. So thank you so much for your service. And I look forward to continuing to see and hear from you, even if it's sitting on the other side of the table.
Thank you. All right, our board planning calendar is here. Our next meeting will be the organizational meeting that will start in just a few minutes here, followed by a work session. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Bankin, seconded by Colton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0.
Now we'll call to order the organizational meeting of the Ames Community School Board for November 22nd, 2021. The first item on the agenda is to review the abstract of votes. We have received the abstract of votes from the Story County Auditor, and the abstract indicates that Brett Becker, Amy Erica Smith, and Kelly Winfrey were duly elected Ames Directors at Large for a term of 4 years. So we will invite our new board members to come forward. I'll give you a chance to set your stuff down. You join me. And if you'd raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of director in the Ames Community School District as now and hereafter required by law? You? Congratulations. Congratulations. I've got a little something for each of you. Thank you. Thank you. That makes it official and they cannot escape. We'll take a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Lankitis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Director Lankitis, will you read our purpose statement, please?
The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access and empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you. The next action on the agenda is the election of the president. So I will entertain nominations for the office of president.
I nominate Sabrina Shields Cook for president.
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
Sorry.
That's all right. That was correct. Are there any other nominations? Would someone like to move the
I
nomination?
move nomination cease.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we will take a vote on the office of president by roll call. So as I call your names, if you will say the name of the choice for president. And there's one candidate. Director Smith?
Sabrina Shields Cook.
Director, Becker?
Sabrina Shields Cook.
Director Winfrey?
Sabrina Shields Cook.
Director Lankitis?
Sabrina Shields Cook.
Director Shields Cook?
Sabrina Shields Cook.
Director Beerbaum?
Sabrina Shields Cook.
And Director Franson.
Sabrina Shields Cook.
I'm sorry, I will learn all of your names. Director Shields Cook, you'll come forward. You'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of president in the Ames Community School District as now and herever provided by law, required by law? I do. Congratulations. I will now turn the chair over to the duly elected president. Here's the oath for vice. Yours.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is election of vice president and oath of office. And I will entertain nominations for vice president.
I nominate Michelle Lankitis for vice president.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? I'll entertain a motion to cease nominations.
I move we cease nominations.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. And we will do a roll call vote for the office of vice president. And I'll start on the other end. Director Franson.
Franzen, aye, or Lankitis?
Lankitis. Director Beerbaum, sorry.
Michelle Lankitis.
Director Shields Cook, Michelle Lankitis. Director Lankitis.
Michelle Lankitis.
Director Winfrey. Michelle Lankitis. Director Becker.
Michelle Lankitis.
Director Smith.
Michelle Lankitis.
Michelle Lankitis. All right. If you will, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Vice President in the Ames Community School District as now or hereafter required by law? I do. Right, our next item is the reappointment of our Secretary Treasurer, and I will entertain a motion.
I move the board reappoint Chris Dunsland as the board secretary treasurer.
Second.
Moved by Lankitis, seconded by Franson, and we will roll call vote. No, we don't need to roll call vote. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Ms. Dunsland, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Board Secretary Treasurer in the Ames Community School District as now or hereafter required by law.
I do.
And the next item on our agenda is appointment of legal counsel.
I move the board appoint Hollers and Cooney as legal counsel.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaume, seconded by Franzen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. All right, now that we have all of our that business out of the way, we will go on to our COVID-19 update. And we'll turn it over to Dr. Kathy Arnold.
Good evening, board. I'm happy to kick off this evening's COVID update with our first slide is our Story County data. Story County remains at a high level of community transmission. The most recent CDC numbers at the time I prepared the report are as follows. Story County is currently at a high level of community spread with 209.03 total new cases per 100,000 persons in the past 7 days, which represents about a 50 case increase from the report 2 weeks ago. The 7-day positivity is 13.44, which represents a bit more than a 1% increase from the previous report. Additionally, as of the last IDPH report, 19% of the new cases in Story County are in those 0 to 17 years of age, which represents an 8% increase from the previous report. As far as vaccinations, we continue to see about a 0.5% increase in vaccination percentage every 2 weeks in Story County. Currently, 57.6% of Story County residents are fully vaccinated, and an additional 5.6% are partially vaccinated, and that's based on 2 doses, not including booster doses. Of those 12 and up, 64.7% are fully vaccinated, and an additional 4.3% are partially vaccinated. The 5 to 11-year-old vaccinations still are not included in either the IDPH or CDC's numbers. They keep saying they're coming, so we're hoping they are.
Do you anticipate they'll disaggregate those and keep them separate for the percentages?
We will have access to it. There's the numbers for the CDC has said that 5 to 11, they're reporting nationwide numbers, and they're going to be able to break those down to countywide. So I would assume that data would be shared that way as well. The next slide includes our student and staff data. At the time the report was prepared, we had 9 students and 5 staff members who are currently positive for COVID-19. We have 146 total students positive and 32 staff positive since the beginning of the school year. And again, to break down that data a little bit, 57% of the positive cases in students are in PK elementary. And if you add in 6th grade, that's up to about 67% of our cases. As far as positives in our staff, 66% of the positives in the staff are in that PK elementary. With vaccinations rolling out in that population, that should start to equal out over time. Finally, 72% of the positives in staff have been breakthrough cases. On the next slide, you'll see some COVID-related vaccine updates. We provided a COVID vaccination clinic for children 5 to 11 on Saturday, November 13th, where we gave 198 doses. The second doses for that clinic will be held on Saturday, December 4th, and with the same appointment times. Any questions on that on our clinics can be directed to the vaccine.clinics@ames.k12.ia.us. And finally, just as presented last meeting, OSHA released their Emergency Temporary Standard, or ETS, on November 4th, requiring organizations with 100 or more employees to require proof of vaccination or the weekly testing and mask wearing while indoors. Kristen Johnson and I met, we developed a draft of our policy based on IASB's recommendations and created associated procedures and forms. And then OSHA suspended implementation and enforcement of the ETS pending the future developments in litigation. So we have our basis built and are happy to share that if the ETS moves forward. And we can provide more information on that at future meetings. And thus completes my report. Please let me know what questions that I can answer.
I guess one question as a follow-up to something we had discussed in some previous meetings. I think I had read in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, the CDC came out with a large study, or somebody came out with a large study summarizing mask effectiveness. And if I remember right, it was something like 53 or 54% reduction in cases for areas that had masks in place. Is that accurate, or have you seen any other
I would have
studies?
to have, I don't know the number specifically off the top of my head, but that does correspond with what I remember as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Arnold. And we will entertain any comments from the public on our COVID-19 update. So if you're present in the room and you have a comment on the COVID-19 update, you can come on up to the front.
Hello.
Miss, please state your name and address.
Hello, Christopher Kasek, 5616 Maryland Street in Ames. I have 2 kids, a 6th and 7th grader, and I'm pretty sure you guys mostly know my stance. I think that masks were good at one point. I don't think that they're doing us any good. Just the studies that I've seen, the cluster randomized trials, like I said, the best one that's there, it showed that the cloth masks were not effective. Surgical masks were, and I'm sure KN95s that wasn't included in there were also very effective, the most effective. But I think at this point, I mean, I've spoke to multiple board members about, now that 5 to 11-year-olds are able to get vaccinated, then we might be able to head towards getting rid of the mask mandate. It's obviously not going to stop the spread of it, because most of these cases looks like they've been breakthrough cases for people that are vaccinated. And personally, I just don't think it's necessary at this point. The cases are going to keep shooting up. My guess would be because of what's happened the past 2 years, because it's getting cold indoors. People are all going indoors. It's going to spread there. People obviously don't wear masks at home. And the majority of kids I see don't wear them out of school either. So that's just my stance on it. And maybe if you guys could come up with some sort of metrics or a stopping point at some point. I mean, there's been about a little over 700 kids that have died in the US in the past 2 years from it. All those deaths are very tragic, but I think we need to look at the positives and negatives. And nobody's really looked at any negative effects, whether mental, physical, anything like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Any other comments from the public on our COVID-19 update? Okay, we will move on to our information and discussion items. And our first item will be our policies for discussion. Director Franzen, if you want to just give a quick summary.
You betcha. So just a little broad information for the benefit of our new board members. So a couple of things that our school district, through the Iowa Association of School Boards, we have 2 things. We have a policy primer, and it's something that our staff, board members can too, get in to look at what model IASB policies are to use as a reference point, guiding point, as we look at policies for the policy committee as we're reviewing them. This summer, we had a full review, so they went through all of our policies. And so our staff has been really good about, we're really trying to catch up on some things that have needed some reviews. So that's why you see in the minutes on all of these were a lot of Chris's policies that we've reviewed. So one of the things that we are organizing, the staff is taking and organizing all of our policies into 3 key areas: the policy statement, the scope of policy, and then the accountability overview. And so we're trying to do that with all of our policies to provide some consistency there, and to make it a little easier for whether it's members of the public or staff or board members to hone in on what the actual policy is, kind of what that scope is, and then who's in charge of them. So I say that to you so you can see in the minutes for those that are up for discussion. We will always present policies. The policy committee will present them for discussion 1 week, followed by taking them for action at the following meeting. Sometimes things are tabled. That's okay to go back to the policy committee if there's some word choices or some intent that is maybe not clear in them. So it's helpful if you look at the minutes, and none of the policies that are in front of you, we always, I think the facilitator of the policy committee and the staff member that's working on them, we do try to call attention to some maybe that are going through more adjustments than others. But a lot of those that we're going through right now are things that have been caught by IASB, things that our staff has put in from their review of the IASB information. Some have been rescinded because we've had duplicative things that we have not needed. So anytime you see the minutes, that's a good place to start. And then the board members always try to make sure that we call attention to any that may have some additional changes or those warranting specific attention at the meeting. So all of these policies in front of you, Chris, I know I did not ask you, but I do not believe, other than some have been accommodated to, you put current language in 406.6 and 412.4, and they're identical, and they refer to
Yeah.
just different sets of employees.
When
So-
when we met with the policy committee, I told him it was kind of like a little bit going down a rabbit hole. I'd review one of my policies, and then I'd go and check and make sure that from the IASB model, that the ones that were cross-referenced that we had. And so 406.6 and 412.4 are policies on our 403B plans. We have not had these policies before. ISB recommends them. It just simply states what we've been doing. We've always had a deferred compensation plan. So, do you want me to go through the rest of them, or?
I don't think, maybe we should ask all of you if you'd like. Most of them are just standard ones that we've looked at staff has compared to IASB model and maybe taken theirs. Our staff does a really good job of making sure we have current language in them, and that's all reflected. Unless there's a question, I would imagine you can all look at it and before we take action next time.
Sometimes we've had many ISB policies in one, so we've broken those out. So sometimes that's why you see new policies.
I have one question on 704.1.A, Pebble, the levy. The 5-year plan aspect, I think maybe it's a question or comment. I know, Polly, you're working to have some strategic planning related to facilities and things. I think just taking that into account with this one, because this is setting that it is a 5-year plan and a 5-year kind of review that way, just so we make note to make sure this is consistent with whatever we do there. Because realistically, the way we function, you know, we're talking every few months about some of the things with Pebble and how that's being used. So I would anticipate this time frame might not quite be right, but I leave that to you and staff to figure out.
You know, often when you are able to get a long-range plan in place, it almost becomes a rolling plan, and as you meet, you're updating. You just want to make sure you don't allow those plans to become outdated. But I appreciate that check, and we will certainly confirm that.
Any other questions on the policies for discussion?
For policy 701.1, which requires the declaration of a depository, would we automatically then have a proclamation within this meeting or a subsequent meeting that declares a depository institution?
So
How does this work?
the depository resolution is adopted by a board whenever a depository is changing or the amounts are changing. So I believe we brought a depository resolution before the board just before we issued the $58 million of GO bonds last spring, because I knew I was going to exceed it at First National Bank. We will not have to update that resolution until we either change banks or change amounts.
Okay.
How far through the IASB policies are we thus far? Approximately.
I would not even make a guess.
Okay, that's a question maybe for policy committee in the future. Just, I'm wondering how close we are to catching up. So,
Our list is still pretty long.
okay.
And part of it is, as several have noted, there are policies that we've had that no longer are recommended. There's policies that haven't had that are recommended. And then we are trying to shift from what had been a 5-year review cycle to a 4-year review cycle. So that has pushed quite a few into the review process. And the logic behind that is you all serve 4-year terms. And so we get through the whole policy manual alongside board terms. But I'm still seeing in my head an entire page on an Excel spreadsheet of ones that I don't know the number of that, but several.
We're concentrating on those that are out of compliance with the statute. The statute requires that they be reviewed every 5. So we'll be in compliance at 4, obviously. So the ones you're seeing are the ones that were up for 5 years this year. And any that then led me down that rabbit hole that I had to go find the other ones and get those approved. So, and then I don't know about the other series of this.
Well, thank you to staff and whoever is going to be on the policy committee. Maybe we'll find out later tonight. So that's a lot of work.
All right. If there are no other questions from the board, I will entertain any comments from the public on our policies for discussion. Then seeing none, we will move on to our next discussion item, which is our 2021-22 substitute teacher pay rate. And I'll turn it over to Kristen Johnson. I'm sorry. Is there a motion?
No.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, Chuck. All right. Thank you and welcome to our new directors. If you've been listening to any of our discussions over the course of the school year, we have been experiencing quite a severe shortage of substitute teachers. And so as we've gone through the school year, we continuously have been looking at ways that we might be able to help increase our fill rate and increase our the number of substitute teachers that we have available to cover for our teachers. So I wanted to, as part of this effort and our discussion today, I went through and I did a little bit of research and comparison did a comparison rate or a study of the past 4 years and our absenteeism rate and our fill rate, our substitute fill rate. So for the first months of the school year, so we compared from the start of school to November 15th. As you can see from the chart that we have on the screen there, that we've gone, we have experienced a lot higher absentee rate this year. To go along with that, our fill rate has dropped. So 4 years ago, comparatively speaking, we filled about 94.6% of our substitute needs 4 years ago. For that period of time, for the same period of time this year, we've only filled a little over 2/3 of our need. This is obviously causing a hardship on our staff, all of our staff. And that's not to mention the EAs that we don't have and that the EAs that when they're gone, it's hard to fill or find subs for them as well. So I didn't dive any deeper into the reasons for the absences because I wanted to try to figure out one thing at a time. So let's figure out if there's something that we might do to at least get more people interested in coming to sub for our district. So one thing that we have done is the state has instituted what they call a substitute authorization permission from the Board of Educational Examiners. So it would be somebody who fulfills the state's requirements and they don't have to have a teaching degree, but they can act as a sub for short periods of time. And they go through some training and there is a cost associated with that. So what we have done as a district is we have offered, and we started this last year, we offered that if somebody went through that program, got their substitute authorization, and then subbed for us for 10 times, we would reimburse them for to $100 of that cost. And then if they sub for us another 10 times, we would reimburse them another $100, which essentially covered the whole cost of getting that substitute authorization. We started that last year. We have quite a few with sub authorizations that are working and helping serve our needs, but that's not doing it. Another thing we had done is this summer we increased the rate from $124, I think it was.
125, I believe.
Sorry,
125 to 127.
I can't hear you.
I think we increased it from 125 to 127.
Okay, 125, so right, per day. So we went from 125 then to 127 per day this summer. But we've been checking with our districts in the area, and Chris had some information from some of the larger districts in central Iowa, and then we did a check of the smaller districts in the Story County area, and that's what was represented on the next slide that I provided. And as you can see, we have Ames, which is the second to the last one on the right, at 127. The average of all of these is 129. So Ames is currently paying less than the average of all of these districts. When we looked at the larger ones in the central area, Iowa area, the average is 131. So we're $4 less than that. And then if you look at what Ankeny's rate for substitute teachers is 145 for a teacher. And if they're subbing in an area that they have an endorsement, it's actually 160. And Ankeny is not very far away. So what we're recommending is to increase the rate now in the middle of the year to 131, effective, what did we say, November 15th, I think?
Yes.
Effective November 15th. That's the recommendation. And in terms of, the affordability and the ability to cover that cost, I would defer to Chris.
Sometimes you've got to do what you've got to do, but if you think about it logically, I'm sorry, I was in training all day today, so I didn't run any numbers, but if you look at the fill rate compared to the previous years, we're not spending as much on substitutes. So we've got some savings there. Now, if this drives that fill rate up, then we may have to look at that at budget time to see if we need to adjust budget. It's one of those chicken and the eggs things. So I guess we'll see how it affects fill rate.
But it's affecting, I know our teachers are stressed, our administrators are having to cover classes. People from district office, we're even going to start sending people from district office who have teaching license. I don't have a teaching license. I don't think anybody wants me teaching their kids, but
approximately.
We're just trying to find, this is perhaps one way that we might be able to get more subs to come and cover for our teachers.
Approximately how many sub-fill days are there per year? I mean, approximately how many sub-fill days are there per year? I mean, from your chart, it looks like it'd be on the order of like 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, something like that.
So that sub-fill days, it depends on what the total absences would be for that.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to just estimate in my head, if we're increasing the pay by say $2 or $3, what's that actually mean in real budget numbers? Is it just a few $1,000s over the year, or is it
$1,800 a month? It's about $1,800 a month. I was just doing the back of the envelope calculations. It's about $1,800 a month that's proposed additional. So we've got 1368 over the course, 1368 openings over the course of 3 months, which would be about $450 per month, right? Times $4 extra. So we're talking about 450 openings over the course of a month times $4 extra a month is about $1,800 extra a month.
Yeah, so it's not a huge amount, but it's relative. I guess the reason I asked is when I look at that chart, what makes us think that going from where we currently are to 131 will make Ames more attractive comparatively in that market? I mean, it seems like you would still go to some of the other districts you might already be going to. So what makes us think this is going to move the needle? Have you gotten information, feedback from potential subs saying that a few dollars a day is the thing that's going to make a difference?
No, I have not. Trying to be more competitive within Story County. It's really the thought there. Because when you compare with the rest of the Story County districts, we're doing well. But Ankeny is what, 20 minutes away? And we're not near, even with this recommendation, not even near matching them.
So we haven't talked to any potential subs that aren't coming here to ask them what the reason is, to try to find out what it is we could be doing?
Well, no, because they're not on our list. We don't know who, randomly call people and say, why aren't you subbing for us? I'm trying to
Okay, so
figure
we're
out what
assuming
that would look
people on
like.
our list would come here every time they could instead of looking
Yeah,
to go
we
to
don't.
Ankeny on some days.
I have not seen, so we have, our little system shows us when people take sub jobs in other districts. And I haven't seen them in other just a couple that started off the year at a long-term assignment, but then they're coming here. So I don't know. No, I haven't really found a way to survey people who are not subbing for our district to find out whether or not this would be a way to get them to come sub for our district.
Okay.
So I had a question kind of related to the recruiting of subs. You mentioned some of the incentives with state authorization. Have we, as a district, done anything to reach out to folks that maybe would be eligible to sub to try to get them through that process?
Yes, we have published, we put notices on our Facebook or our social media. We've sent emails out to parents in the community. We have student teachers who have taught, and we contacted all of them and asked whether or not, if now that they're done student teaching, would they like to go get their sub authorization and come be a sub for the district.
Do we have people who are, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No. Do we have people who are on multiple lists? Do we have people who are on, say, Ames list, Ames's sub list and also Ankeny's list, or Ames's sub list and also Waukees?
I don't know if we have them on. I don't know. I can't tell that. I can
It's
tell.
very common for sub teachers to sign up with multiple districts.
Right.
And districts that use the same software we do, which is Frontline, which is the majority of them, you have one account and you can go to multiple schools. So yes, it'd be very common for a sub in this area to be on Gilbert's list, to be on Ames' list, to be on Ballard's list or Roland Story's. So I don't know about Ankeny, but yeah.
So if you're on a website and you see that here's a job posted at 127 and here's another job posted at 137, it's really simple to click on the one that's posted at 137 instead of the one posted at 127.
Yes.
Yes.
So when I look at your chart, these numbers 923 and 1368 are these days of absences.
So
Are they a single day? You've had
those
1,368 days of absence by.
Right, yes.
Okay, and you filled 923 of the 1368.
I'm having a hard time.
And you filled 923 of the,
Absences.
so 923 is not a bad number comparatively when you look at the past years of
Oh,
fill.
right.
Right, we have filled pretty close to, I mean, actually, it's the second highest. What's more astounding to me is the number of absences. And you said you haven't really looked into
I
why
did
we
not
have an
dive into
astounding
that.
number of absences comparatively, even last year when we were.
But one of the main reasons the absences were lowered last year compared to this year is that we had virtual learning going on, and staff, if they were exposed to COVID and had to quarantine, could work from home. That opportunity is not available this year. So we're going to have more absences this year.
Are you having them quarantine if they've, based on CDC guidance?
We haven't had that much need to for it. We haven't.
So I
had
mean,
that many.
is the huge rise and increase because of quarantining and isolation?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay,
I was just pointing out that last year, they wouldn't have had to take an absence.
right.
So I don't know that 2020 is the better year. Now, it is still way high. If you look at 2018, prior to COVID, we had 1,074 total days and we're up to 1,368. I
I'm
think
just,
there's probably a lot of reasons for that. but-
yeah, I'm just curious as to why it's,
I think there may be.
because your fill rate's not bad. If you look at how many absences I filled over the last few years.
Well, I would say the rate,
The rate
being
is not good, but
two-thirds.
it's being
The
led by the
number
number of
isn't bad.
absences. It's led by the number of absences is why your fill rate is low.
From a financial standpoint, as of this time last year, we had spent $95,500 on teacher subs, and as of the same point this year, we have spent $67,300. So
So we had spent more last year at this point.
For less filling.
we did have some long-term subs last year for teachers that had to teach remote, and we had to have teachers in the classroom. So we do have a little bit of that, but the amount that we had spent specifically on COVID last year was $13,000 at this point. So it's still a little bit less than where we would have been. And we're not out of COVID this year, so.
I guess the question I had is, are you planning to look at the reason for the absences?
yes.
Right.
If we've spent so much less this year, then is there a reason why we can't increase it up to higher than 131? Why was that number decided on? If we have the funds to go higher and be more competitive with Ankeny and other school districts?
The initial thought was I was going for the shot for the average of the larger districts in the area, but I also had an incorrect number for Ankeny at that time. And my HR generalist called and actually looked online for what Ankeny was advertising their substitute teaching pay at, and it was less than what we had been informed by email. I mean, it was more. It was
And the
145.
increase would be permanent, while the savings is a one-time savings. So we have to consider that as we go through future years as well.
But you're saying the number you based the increase on was incorrect. If you would have had the correct Ankeny number, do you think that?
It probably would have been a little bit higher. We
Right.
also did not include though all of the surrounding Story counties and rates, and those are lower.
Mhm.
But I still feel that we could be losing a lot of people to Ankeny.
So if we raised it, say, to 135, which is the average in, or the amount offered in DCG is Des Moines
Dallas Center,
Consolidated.
Grimes, Southeast Polk,
Who's ever running the PowerPoint? Could you, thank you.
Yeah,
South DCG is Dallas Center, Grimes. They have a 135. Southeast Polk is 135. Winterset is at 135. Waukees at 136.
Did you say if we raise it, that becomes permanent then, Chris?
It would seem to me that if you raised the sub rate, it would be hard to take that down in a future year. Unless every other school district brought theirs down as well, because you're gonna have to stay competitive.
So that means Ankeny is going to stay at 145.
right.
For all intents and purposes, so they're
I would
always going to
guess.
be significantly higher.
Unless they suddenly had way more substitute teachers.
Let's say if the supply demand situation changes, then I could see other districts lowering as well to save money. But if Ankeny and these other schools stay, let's say at 145, then we're always going to be fighting for that. So it seems like we would have to raise the rate to stay competitive long-term anyway.
Right.
And those higher districts are all within that metro area. So if you live in that metro area, the commute between those districts is not much. So that would be the same for us, like for Nevada, Gilbert, Roland, Story. Those would all be what our grouping would more likely be. I'm not a substitute teacher, so I don't know if $10 extra a day would be worth the drive to Ankeny or not.
I guess, so I'm fully supportive of increasing an additional 3% to 135 as had been suggested. I guess I'm a little bit disappointed, would like to know more in the future from this of, we both don't know why the absences are higher necessarily. We don't know all the reasons there. And we haven't actually vetted to know whether the action we're talking about taking is an action that substitute teachers would actually care about to make them want to substitute with us more. It seems like those two things would be key to understand. That said, it looks like we're not paying as much as other areas, so I'm fully supportive of increasing it. But I think we should look into both the causes and the needs as well, to make sure that we're able to really cover this, because this isn't necessarily going to suddenly get better. We're going to have next semester as well, so.
Do we have any sense of if those other districts are having similar absence rates, or I know this, might be harder data to find if they presented in a board meeting or something similar, but
No, I haven't asked that.
I'm wondering if this is unique to us or if this is.
I doubt it. I know that what I do know is, yes, they're having trouble filling their positions that are open. So for example, Cedar Rapids had 200 positions they did not fill for the school at the beginning of the school year. Dubuque had 20 teacher positions they had not filled. I also know then from the same group of comparable, HR directors, that they are having trouble with the substitute fill rates as well, getting substitute teachers. A lot of them are retired teachers who have decided they didn't think it just wasn't worth it for them to come into our schools right now.
Yeah.
And in my conversations with other CFOs, they're not only having our same issues as filling positions, but finding subs. And I think this was demonstrated very strongly by Sadale High School having to close a week or so ago because they had no staff. It wasn't because all their staff was sick, it was because they did not have subs to fill those staffing positions.
Thank you.
I will, since I was just pretty harsh, I will commend staff on the idea of some of the unique strengths of Ames that we can take advantage of. For example, the student teachers. That's a great idea. I mean, that's a great way to get student teachers some additional experience, get them in the classroom. We try to look at some creative ways like that, but.
I wonder if there are other ways that we can informally encourage people that we know in the community to take advantage of the emergency certification for substitutes, which is not something that the board necessarily can do, but it seems that there are people in the community who can be encouraged to do this.
There aren't any other questions. I think the action is done a later time, so.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just put a plug out there for anybody who's interested in substitute teaching. You can go to our website to find out more. All right. Are there any comments from the public on our substitute teacher pay rate discussion item? Okay. Then I will go ahead and open our public forum and I will read our statement on public comments. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And we will start with our folks who are here in person, and we have Christopher Kasak.
Hello, Christopher Kasak, 5616 Maryland, and I'm here to speak about a topic that's been going on the past year, but especially recently, and that's school resource officers, SROs. I think that they are vitally important to the safety of the children. It is extremely important for many aspects. Number one, if there's a school shooter, whether from internally or externally, seconds matter. I've been trained in it before, and I'll tell you, seconds definitely do matter. Having somebody already inside the school, already armed up, trained in this matters. Number two, any kind of medical response. It's no secret that kids are going to do drugs. Obviously, we want to stop that as much as we can. But with the rise in fentanyl and opioid abuse around, what happens when that kid drops out and literally has seconds and can't breathe and needs Narcan administered? Cops do that all the time. And seconds count there too. Also, we've done a great job destroying the trust of students and the police. We've done it especially over the past 2 years. And it is going to do nothing in my mind but damage the children. If you're constantly told from a young age that this person is after you, this person is bad, this person doesn't like you, then especially if you don't have interactions on a daily basis with police or whoever you're talking about, that's going to just imprint it in a child's mind. And then they're going to grow up and it's going to go on a path like this. They need to be able to trust law enforcement. Yes, are there bad cops out there? Of course there are. There's bad everything out there. Are there disgusting incidents we could bring up? Yeah, of course there is. But with what, 50 million police responses a year, and we can point some of them out as disgusting and horrible as those are, and they need to be dealt with on an individual basis. They need to be dealt with on an individual basis. And kids being able to interact with police officers, use them. What if they're being abused at home and they build rapport with that officer? And hey, gets them out of that horrible situation. What if something's going to go down later that day that they know about and they've built rapport with that officer? It's a lot easier to intervene before something happens instead of just constantly playing catch up and the school saying, hey, incident happened, let's punish the students. Instead of that, let's try and be proactive and cut it off. And yeah, those are the reasons why I think it is vitally important. We're willing to implement mask mandates. There's probably been plenty of COVID outbreaks and amongst the students, and the vast overwhelming majority of them are going to be fine. If something deadly happens in the school shooting, medical response, anything like that, guarantee there's going to be at least some kids that are going to die or be maimed. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Are we getting our timer? Thank you. Okay. Tamara Call.
Hi, my name is Tamara Call, and I live at 3988 550th Avenue. And first, want to say congratulations to the new school board directors. Thank you for being willing to serve. I think we all are very aware and concerned about the increased amount of violence and vandalism that we have seen in our schools this year. There's also been a lot of discussion among the school board members over the last 18 months about the role of school resource officers in our district. Some have communicated a desire to have professionals with different training than school resource officers, such as therapists and social workers, but others have emphasized that SROs are highly trained. I think with the decision made recently to remove Officer Johnson and to not fill that role in his absence, I think it's really important that we take into consideration these decisions. So in 2021, the school board did a comprehensive literature review about the effectiveness of SROs. It did not show a strong negative or positive correlation in that review, but it did show that a prevention-focused role that includes multi-component evidence-based intervention is effective. The district and city had agreed that the SROs would take a relational and a proactive approach in their role in the school buildings, and that they would focus on building trusting relationships. And we all know that trusting relationships between adults and children and adolescents is well researched to be preventative for numerous negative outcomes. Training is also essential for SROs, and the SROs in Ames receive evidence-based training through the National Association for School Resource Officers, which focuses on establishing highly ethical programs in order to build respect and trust. To provide, equip them to provide safety education to students and staff, to provide strategies for them to appropriately proactively and reactively deal with situations with students with disabilities, to provide tools to help them foster mentoring relationships, to address incidents that originate and or intersect on social media, provide understanding of the development of the teen brain and the impact of trauma on the brain, how to develop and support successful relationships with diverse students, and then knowledge about the latest drugs and youth trends in order to detect safety concerns on school campuses. So I think they receive a very broad training and a very very effective to the things that they are going to see on a daily basis in the school building. Our children personally have had very positive experiences with SROs in the school, but I know that that isn't the case for everyone. And one of our own children came to us from a hard place and has always had a fear of police officers. But when he heard that it was being considered that SROs no longer be in the schools, his first response was, but they read books to us and they eat lunch with us at school. And so it was a very positive thing for him in a way to build that trust and eliminate the fear that he had towards law enforcement officials. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Amy Duvik?
Hi, I'm Amy Duvik, and I live at 3402 Emerald Drive. And first off, I want to say congratulations to the 3 new board members. I wouldn't add a lot to what Tamara said. We've just heard personally from staff members, from teachers, from students. They want the SROs back for their friendly faces, their support, and their expertise in dealing with escalated students and challenging situations. And I didn't expect to be talking about this, but just to speak to the sub situation, I just recently have had 2 conversations with subs, one of whom prefers to sub full-time for her income, won't come back to Ames, not because of the pay, but because of the chaos, because of the lack of respect of students, and because of the violence. She's afraid. So, yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. David Wong? Oh, sorry.
Good evening. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is David Wong, 2216 State Avenue. I just want to kind of support and agree with the folks that just spoke. I don't know them, but definitely agree. The reason I'm here today, and I don't know the process of the board that well, just because this is my first time here, but my daughter is a freshman at Ames High, obviously, and I guess my concern is that there's just overall some behavioral issues that I've noticed or she's reported to me. For example, the bathrooms aren't available for them to use, which just seems a little bit unusual in a high school that these bathrooms have to be locked down. There's a lot of just disruptive behavior. There's a lot of fights that are breaking out. And so I'm not sure. I'm assuming that the board is aware of these behavioral issues. And so if you're not, I would ask that you consider looking into them, documenting them, and then how we're going to move forward to make the environment in the school safer and just a better learning environment for all our students. So again, yeah, that's basically what I said. I don't know where the process is to investigate these things or try and come up with ways to improve the environment in the school. But it just seems like it's excessive. I had 2 other daughters who graduated, several years ago, and this wasn't an issue, whereas now it seems to be more prominent, whether that's return from COVID or just the way that society is a little bit amped up a little bit. So appreciate you looking into it, and hopefully we can make some progress to get that fixed.
Thank you, David. Casey Cruz?
Hello, my name is Casey Cruz. I'm at 2513 Suncrest Drive, and this is my son Conrad, who attends school at Ames High. We are here to advocate for the SRO officers. I have a middle schooler also and a high schooler who absolutely adore the SROs along with their friends and look to them as being mentors. The data the school board presented was based on a study done many years ago and from schools with very different demographics than Ames, Iowa. The data presented last year by the Ames PD concluded that a majority of the points of contact with students were overwhelmingly positive. SROs are aware of issues that happen outside of the schools as well, which is very important on the day-to-day school life of our kids. Police officers are trained to de-escalate these types of situations, such as the ones that happened after the SRO was terminated last week. There was at least 2 fires. Conrad's going to speak to kind of what else has been going on lately, but a clear majority of the teachers and faculty, as well as hundreds of parents and students that I have personally spoken to, are all in support of having SROs at the school. I ask you, why is the board that was supposedly elected to reflect the views of parents, students, and the community not on board with this? This is another example of allowing politics to guide decisions in what is supposed to be a bipartisan learning environment.
Yeah, I do believe that we should have our SROs back. And as like a student who like goes to the high school, I personally see like lots of like just like unlike attentive students, like as in like there's like not like an extra eyes to be watched on. And like I do believe that SROs really help with that. And like with the trash can fires, like that wouldn't probably have happened if there was like an SOR there, or like any more like school fights. Like I've seen like teachers like firsthand had to just break those things. But I do believe like that shouldn't be their job to like really involve themselves into that, because I know it's really tough to really involve themselves into that and to have like students fight back for that. It's just a lot of mental pressure. And I've talked to like my study hall teacher, like it's just like not very fair. And yeah.
Thank you, Casey and Connor. And we will move to our Zoom participants. And first we have Abdullah Muhammad. And just hold on, we will give you permission to speak in just a second here. There we go. You've been given permission to speak.
Hello, my name is Abdullah Muhammad, 316 Topaz Court. And I want to also say congratulations to the new board members and to thank you all for serving. Certainly had your work cut out for you. But I wanted to speak about the Danielson Group's service agreement that's going to be up in the further down in the agenda. And so I have some pretty significant concerns about this service agreement. And my understanding is that the Danielson Group is doing some specific skill building and prep work for possible alternative school or alternative programming in the district. And if that is indeed the case, the information in the service agreement and on the Danielson website is very opaque. You know, if you look at the materials provided on this agenda and on the website, I haven't been able to find anything explicitly stating anything about an alternative program or that. There's just vague language about teacher like learning and partnership and that kind of thing. And so again, if this is indeed the case for this organization, I have some grave concerns about the execution of any such program in our district right now. And so since the district hasn't really addressed any of the outcomes of the 2019 equity audit, seems to have no idea of the causes of the behavioral or the academic disparities or the causes of disruptive behaviors from any of the students, and hasn't properly assessed the extent to which the disparities could even be driven by problematic teacher behavior, I'm concerned that any alternative programming will grossly magnify the disparities we already have for a lot of our students. And so I believe that that programming will negatively impact our African-American students, negatively impact lower SES students, students with undiagnosed or untreated mental health issues, or the bullying and the other issues that LGBTQIA+ students are experiencing. And so we just had a very robust conversation just a few minutes ago about whether the district has reached out to subs to find out why they aren't coming to Ames, and a really good robust discussion there. And so I would just encourage the board to have the same level of critical analysis for addressing our district's academic and behavioral issues for our marginalized students. And so as the Danielson Group begins with the work of the district, I would like to see a specific and detailed plan from the district for how we'll be proactive in preventing the issues and improving the outcomes for our marginalized and vulnerable students. And so not adequately addressing these issues is causing increased student behavior, massive burnout from teachers and other folks in support roles, and a whole host of other issues. And so hopefully we can get a better handle on this before we start this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdullah. All right. And that was our only Zoom comment. So I will go ahead and close our public forum and we will move. Well, we do require that you sign up at the beginning of the meeting, but you can email us your comments if you'd like to do that after the meeting. Okay, thank you. We have to stick with our policy just to make sure that it's fair for everybody. Thank you. Okay. JD, can you put the agenda back up, please? Thank you. All right, we will move on to our consent items, and I will entertain a motion.
I move approval of the consent items as presented.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Franzen, and Superintendent Vincent, gifts to the district.
It's my pleasure to acknowledge the following gifts. We have a gift from Amcor Rigid Packaging, a gift from Chris Jensen, a gift from United Way of Central Iowa, gifts from PEO Sisterhood, the HO chapter, and also Dorothy Yorger, and a gift from the members at First Credit Union Bank. And these are majority of the gifts to the Hope Pantry and food related. So we thank these generous donors for helping to care for our students.
Thank you, Superintendent Vincent. It was moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Franzen to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Okay. Moving on to our action items. Our first item is our 2021-22 substitute teacher pay rate.
I move the board approve the substitute rates of pay for the remainder of 2021 through 2022 at a rate of $135 per day per policy 410.5.
Second.
So discussion on this, we talked about this earlier. The one question I would have is for Chris, because I hate making a change in the amount at the board table without having staff have time to react. So the question I would have is, maybe to Paula or Chris or Kristen, do we want to table this until the next meeting, or is it seen that this needs to happen at this specific meeting?
We meet again on December 13th, so it would essentially delay this almost through the end of this time period until the winter break. We are so short-staffed, and we have such pressure on our existing staff that I would recommend, and I'm going to look at Chris, see if she gives me a different signal. I would recommend that we go ahead and make the adjustment. We don't know that this will solve the issue, but at least we know we'll be competitive. And any support at this point to bring some relief to our existing staff, I think would be dollars well spent.
Do you have any hesitation of us making that adjustment to 135 right now? I mean, I'm fine with pulling that back and changing my motion to 131 until a future meeting if you think that's warranted. I think from our discussion earlier, it sounds like the board would rather it be the higher amount, but again, I hesitate to make that change without giving you time to fully think through it.
I don't know that one additional meeting that we'd have any data to know what the financial impact is going to be. As I said earlier, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. We just don't know until we raise it, how it's going to affect our fill rate. I would suggest, I'm not uncomfortable with the rate you have proposed. I would suggest we monitor it through budget time, and if we need to make adjustment at budget to account for the increase, we will do that.
Well, as I've learned, when you're not uncomfortable with something financially, then I should be very comfortable. So I'll leave it at that motion then.
So Chris, will we have an opportunity to get a report from you at the December meeting on how this is going? I mean, it will go into effect instantaneously, I guess, so.
Well, so we already have all of the subs that have served through, so the 15th was a Monday, so I'm going back, so that'd be the 12th.
Right.
Those are already in for payroll. We've already pulled those subs, we have a short week this week, and payroll's next week for, so this would go into effect as of November 15th. So it wouldn't, with this week being 3 days off, I'm not sure we're going to have much data by December 13th. I would say maybe by the January, maybe the second meeting in January, we might have some data.
Okay.
Again, that first meeting is pretty close after we get back from winter break. So again, we have a fairly long winter break in December as well. So I just don't know that we're going to have that much data. I mean, we can, but I don't know how much data we'll have.
I would like to propose, and I would like the staff to identify if this is too much work, but if there's a way that we could be kept abreast of the fill rate. I think that when I see that fill rate, I think of all of those over 300 openings. That means our special teachers, our staff are giving up their planning period, our administrators, perhaps district offices covering those. And so I guess I would be curious to know if that is a feasible request from the board for us to have that, in whatever time period you believe would be helpful to keep us aware of that as we navigate these difficult times covering our classes.
So I'm sorry, what is it you were asking for? I didn't quite catch it.
Just the chart, I don't know if it was the first one or the second one, but just to be kept informed of what that fill rate is.
Sure.
I too would be interested in knowing the absences. Anecdotally, I ran into a teacher at a moment last week and they didn't have childcare, right? So everything cascades. And so what are those challenges that our staff are having that is potentially causing this increase in absences, and what is the creative thinking maybe that can happen among all of us? I know you are all being creative thinkers, but what are those challenges as we look at long-term? Because we know, after being at IASB last week, we are not the only district that is dealing with this. This is a challenge across education right now. So it's upon us to figure out how we navigate this, and I don't know if it can just come from continuing to raise the rate. But I am supportive of, again, I am with Alan. When I hear Chris say that we can manage this, I am supportive of this. I want us to be above the average so that if that is keeping people away from subbing, maybe it will draw a few more people. So thank you for bringing it to our attention, staff.
Okay, it was moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Lankaitis to approve the substitute rate of pay for the remainder of 2021-22 at $135 per day. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. New high school construction project change orders.
I move the board approve the change orders for the new Ames High School construction project as presented.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Franzen. Discussion?
So one thing I'll point out on this, it looks like a lot of new change orders. It looks like a lot of details, maybe for some of the new board members. I know we're going to talk at one of the next meetings kind of about the high school process and all of this. One thing I wanted to point out is approximately $250,000 of this is actually not additions or it's contractual changes, but it's meant to be a line item movement where it's moving something that was budgeted in FF&E movable equipment up to construction costs as a contractual method of getting us some advantageous outcomes. So really, it's not actually changing the budget in any way whatsoever. So just wanted to make a point of that.
Thank you. Any other discussion? It was moved by Beerbaume, seconded by Franzen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Substantial completion of New Ames High School project bid package 05-1.
I move the board approve substantial completion of concrete, precast, and steel included in bid package 05-1 for Core Structural Services LLC.
Second.
Moved by Franzen, seconded by Beerbaume. Discussion?
I hope to see more of these very soon.
This is our first one. Let's celebrate.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Substantial completion of Mitchell addition and remodel project.
I move the board approve substantial completion and final acceptance of the work for the Mitchell Elementary additions and remodel 2020 project at 3521 Jewel Drive, completed by Lane Construction Group in the amount of $3,874,251.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaume, seconded by Franzen. Discussion?
We got to tour this a few months ago. It's a great addition. I recommend for any board members that haven't been able to see it, try to see it in the next 6 months, a year. Really, really great work there. Thank you to Jerry and all the staff and everybody else.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Board and staff items. We'll start with items from the board. And we do have one request for staff, which is regular updates on the substitute fill rate and any other information that can be provided that is reasonable around that topic. Any other items from the board?
I'm just going to welcome Kelly, Brett, and Amy Erica. I've gotten to go to the Inclusion Symposium with Kelly and Brett and Amy Erica with IASB last week, so getting to know you, but looking forward to fresh eyes on the work we do as a board. So welcome aboard, and we're here to answer any questions as you drink from your fire hose.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, items from the superintendent.
Again, would echo a welcome to our newest members and a thank you also to those of you continuing. Having a new team is always an exciting time, and we also know it's a time that gives us opportunity to rethink how are we doing business and how can we get better. So look forward to that conversation here in a little bit as we start a work session. I will provide a more detailed report in the weekly update about the IASB conference. I actually thought it was perhaps one of the stronger conferences I had attended in several years. So was very pleased by the quality of the speakers and ideas and things that we could bring back to consider in our own district. Beyond that, we wish everyone safe holidays here. I'm hopeful that it might help us not only on reducing our medication rates, but also refilling the tank, so to speak, for some of our staff. That no matter where you go, I was with a group of Urban Education Network superintendents last week, and many commented that it has probably been the toughest year in their careers. And so that coalescence of the pandemic with just the maybe the political backdrop that we all are working through has definitely shifted how we go about schooling. And not necessarily in a bad way, it's just a recognition that it is definitely a challenging time. But with that, I'll say the rest of my comments for our work session.
All right. Our board planning calendar. I've lost my cursor. All right, well, we do have a work session scheduled for December 9th at 5 p.m. And then our next regular meeting will be scheduled for December 13th. Those will be our only meetings in the month of December. And then in January, we will be diving right in with our superintendent search. So we are kind of still in the lull period for that, where they are hitting the ground and doing a lot of recruiting for us, the search firm is. And then we will start to really dive into interviews in early January. Okay, then we will take a 5-minute break and reconvene in our work session. Oh, and thank you. And yes, and we will not be broadcasting the work session via Zoom, so we'll end our broadcast at this time.